Brothers and sisters in strength, thanks for tuning into this fourth episode of the Outsourced podcast as part of the Strength Coaches Collection. We came up with this idea as part of the high school coaches roundtable and kind of an attachment of that, or an extension of that. This is a resource for the high school strength and conditioning coach and the developmental coach, really, from coaches that might be a little bit outside of what our realm is, and just to get information from great coaches like Matt Gifford. Coach, this is a great opportunity, great timing with the combine going on and pro day training going on. Coach has spent 8 years at Next Level, where he's a sport performance coach and director of NFL Pro Day training in Waukesha, Wisconsin. Coach, I can't thank you enough. We're trying this again. This is our second run at it. I told you how much I appreciate everything you do and all of the content that you put out and the information that you're willing to share. It's been really, really nice to get to know you over these past few years.
Well, I appreciate that, John. Like finds like. And big hello to all the listeners back home. And I know your community is pretty broad and pretty wide ranged. For all the listeners, I first heard of John or saw John through, I want to say, social media. It was probably Instagram or Twitter or something. And he had awesome videos that he would share that were kind of Kelly Starrett-esque. And I used some of the things he would share in my own workouts, and they probably found their way to some of my athletes' workouts as well. So our relationship started before he even knew it, with just him sharing videos. And I'm really proud of what you've done with the National High School Strength and Conditioning Association. It's really cool to kind of see you unify that specific niche, which is pretty broad. And guys like you that are doing that every single day have probably the biggest impact on kids at such a crucial period in their lives too. And I really appreciate it. I'm really excited to talk shop here and talk to you guys about Next Level.
Coach, I appreciate that. Let's get right into it. I want to hear who's influenced you either at Next Level or otherwise in those 8 years that you've spent there.
Sure. So my journey as a professional started, finishing up, I guess, high school at Waukesha West, about 15 minutes away from Next Level. And, I always had like an X's and O's passion towards strength and conditioning, and probably beyond that through speed training. So picked up my first book when I was like 11 years old at Barnes & Noble with my grandpa. And that was a book called Sports Speed. So watching the Olympian sprint and watching Maurice Green back in the late 90s really kind of sparked my interest. And I got into, the internet message boards and Charlie Francis and testosteronenation.com, back when we had dial-up internet at home. And so the passion for the X's and O's was there as a young kid. But then my high school coaches had such a big impact on me from a personal standpoint and from mentors and just people. And, I realized that their impact on me beyond, putting me in the right position on the football field was they taught me how to become a better man, and some of the life skills they equipped with me, along with my parents, really got me interested in coaching. And I started my first year of college at the University of Wisconsin, where I walked onto the football team, and I learned things the hard way there. It was more of a business, and it was very, very competitive. But that was my first introduction to a college weight room, and was really lucky actually to be a part of, the early careers of a lot of great strength coaches. So a guy named John Detman ran that program since the early 90s, and he had a hand in people like Lee Evans and Chris Chambers, who were All-Americans and played in the NFL. And we had some younger coaches, Ben Herbert, who's now at Arkansas, was the guy there that was assistant. Brian Bott, a friend of mine, who's now he owns Sports Advantage in Madison. He was a strength coach there, did some big things with a lot of the NFL linemen. I think at one point he's had like 7 or 8 guys that played in the NFL and started. And then another guy that was there was a guy by the name of Brian Miller. And Brian was an assistant, probably early mid-20s. And I always remember was very calculated. And watching his career, he went out to Oregon State, was a head guy there. And I want to say now he's still at Navy. And we kind of reconnected over social media not too long ago. But my coaching tree really starts back with those Madison days. And, I guess falling in love with the barbell is kind of where I started in high school and that first year at college. Transferred to Whitewater, a smaller Division III school, and I was fortunate enough to be part of a winning tradition. We've got a really rich tradition with the southeastern Wisconsin community. I feel like I can't go anywhere without running into a war hawk. So we always bleed purple, as we say. But I was really lucky to be a part of 3 great teams, great head coaches. Lance Leipold, who's now at Buffalo. I remember his first year after he took over for the legendary Bob Brezowitz. He said, "We're going to get more reps than anybody else in the country." And right off the bat, it kind of set the stone for the law of repetition and the law of purposeful practice. and a tempo. You know, we had an amazing tempo back at Whitewater. It's really unique to see my mentor and one of my mentors in strength and conditioning, our owner, Brad Arnett, the tempo he set with his athletes' workouts at Next Level, you know, was much like the tempo we had on the football practice field at Whitewater. So after Whitewater, I should finish. I did an internship with Next Level, and we've got a great staff here. Brad obviously is a big name, trains JJ Watt. Our general manager, Jake Bodie, he's been an awesome guy, professional strongman. Nick Hansen, big Olympic lift aficionado. Jason Rowe, one of my best buddies. The NSCA state director. He's an assistant guy, works probably 5 to 10 hours a week, or 10 to 15 hours a week here. But he's also a college professor, a college strength coach, and the NSCA state director. And then guys like Dylan Shaver, Willie Werner, younger guys in the industry, provide great energy. So we've got an interesting mix of coaches alongside of me here. But, you know, I think beyond our facility, we've got an amazing 43,000 square foot facility. It's our staff, you know, and our philosophy that really separates us. And likewise, we're lucky to have great clientele.
Awesome. Outstanding. That's really good stuff, Coach. I want to hear, if you could put in a one sentence to tell us about your program, what would that sentence be? So
Next Level is built on honestly developing character and mindset. And I use that word purposeful practice. Everything we do here has a purpose, and it's progressionary based. So that really sets us apart. And I would say we're movement focused first and foremost. So for us, character, mechanical efficiency, and progressions are really the three things that I would think, if you walked into our weight room or watched us coach, really separate us from other places.
Awesome. Sorry, as I'm writing this down. I appreciate that. So as we were talking a little bit about pro day training, and we still might not be discussing, you and I had a really good talk, and we've had numerous discussions about track and field, and kind of thinking about top end speed. Where is the place, if there is one, at least for your thought and in that kind of training window and that sentence that you gave us, for top end speed training for all athletes, but especially the developmental field or court athlete, your football players, or whoever else you might train and you might see through Next Level? How important is top end speed for their training?
I think it's crucial. I mean, you know, for me, I think it serves as almost I'm going to use the word judiciously, like a steroid to the system, right? And I'll never forget Bush Nexnator talking about working with his volleyball athletes. And I agree with it 110% in that it's one of the most, you know, maximal highest output type things you could do with the human body. So why not feed that to all your athletes? So I have everybody from golfers to obviously football guys. Even my adults do it, you know, and obviously it's a huge part in our youth development and our high school and college development. But I think it's got its purpose in every single field sport. And if you can make somebody more efficient with top speed, it's going to have carryover to acceleration. It's just going to raise the bar. Now, with that being said, I think the biggest issue, you know, when looking at maximal speed is the inability for us to address limiting factors.
Outstanding. I appreciate that, Coach. Moving on in our segments that we go through, the 0 hour segment is something that I like to think of for the motor learning and developmental side of training and progressions and programming. What I want to hear from you, and this might be your veteran or experienced athletes or your young athletes that you've never seen before. What are those common trends that you see in those new athletes? And it could be character traits, it could be athletic traits, it could be anywhere along those lines. What are some common trends that you often see?
So if you were to walk through our doors, you know, the first place we start, you know, after initial tour, initial conversation is an assessment. And the assessment process for us allows us to kind of take a step back and, you know, maybe even a 3,000-foot flyover look at the athlete. But we're going to look at everything from goals to body comp to body weight. And within the first 5 to 10 minutes, you're getting a feel for somebody's communication style, whether it be a young kid or a high school, college athlete, or even an adult. So just that first 10-minute period allows us to set the tone. And with the assessment specifically, you know, we're looking at all the tools and components of movement efficiency. So for us, whether it's going to be some type of postural analysis or look, or get somebody on their back on a table and just see the way their bony anatomy is kind of structured and sitting, or what kind of levels they have or levelness. We're looking at mobility, core stability, and general strength. And, you can't change certain genetic traits and factors, and you can't necessarily change bone, right? But if we work on things like mobility, flexibility, so to say, and couple that with stability, we're going to have an easier time with our athletes to get them in the right positions. As you know, with all your high school kids, the biggest issue, is kind of where do you start, right? And everybody wants to get underneath the bar, or they want to run fast, or they want to do really crazy, cool Olympic lifts. But we found that the building blocks aren't there, or I guess more importantly, weren't fed to kids at an early age. So for us, I think ankle mobility, hip mobility, and thoracic spine issues plague the majority of everybody we see. You see a lot of weak glute, lower ab oblique sling, weak mid to upper back. And those are the places that we really want to start when it comes to programming strength work. And for us with movement, it's pretty simple. Every single athlete, no matter the sport, make, or model, the human body is the same, right? We want to be able to bend our knees. We want to be able to extend our hips to absorb force and produce force. We want to be able to push and pull. We want to be able to rotate, right? Clear our hips, change directions, create rotational patterns, things of that nature. At some point, we want to resist fatigue, or we want to resist rotation, right? So if you look at it, needs. And, the crazy part is sport specificity, or the timeline. It really depends on, honestly, sometimes the week, the day, the month, or where they're at back home. But I think we do a really good job with our athletes of never taking anything for granted and never assuming. And honestly, always starting from that 0 step or step one.
Awesome. Coach, I want to throw you your first curveball, because I know this wasn't included in the questions that I sent you, but you touched on Olympic lifting a couple times now. I want to hear, number one, what your thought is and where it fits for the developmental high school athlete, and where it fits for y'all and your programming as well. Still with us, Coach?
John, hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
I'm waving at you because I can't hear you. Yeah.
You're good. Still can't hear me?
I hear you now, brother.
All right. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we hear you.
Oh, so your question was, can you rephrase your question for
Yeah,
me?
sure. Sorry. You touched on Olympic lifting a couple times. I want to hear where your thought is and how it fits for programming for young athletes and high school athletes in particular, but also at next level.
Great question. So when I was probably early 20s is when I became obsessed with Elite FTS, right? And the message boards, and guys like Joe DeFranco, Buddy Morris, right? Some, I guess, fathers of underground strength, some of the best strength coaches in the world. And I noticed that they didn't use many Olympic lifts, right? And they had decent arguments against the Olympic lifts. We can get similar qualities from other exercises. And then I saw their implementation with our staff here at Next Level. And we did such a great job of progressing kids to the platform. And I'll never forget my first week as an intern. I saw a 14-year-old kid hang clean 286 pounds. His name was Derek Lanish, and Derek ended up power cleaning 400 pounds or 396 before his freshman year at Wisconsin. Smooth. But he was somebody that, almost utilizing Russian context, was programmed properly, right? And I tell coaches all the time, if you can commit to it and you're able to progress it and you've got eyes to watch it, then do the Olympic lifts. If you can't, don't. But for us, it starts with just teaching a kid how to hold a bar properly, right? How to brace, how to hinge at the hips, how to bend the knees, how to keep back position. Teaching the RDL is the first spot we started. We teach kettlebell deep sits or deadlifts, things of that nature. Once a kid can throw a med ball or swing a ball, or swing a kettlebell appropriately, that's when maybe they've got some type of mental awareness and capacity to start cleaning. But for us, it starts with platform work and complexing, RDLs, clean pulls, front squats, things of that nature, all the building blocks and derivatives. We see it that, nobody really ever has an issue with Olympic lifts here. And if they have trouble with a catch, maybe there's a wrist issue or a thoracic spine or lat issue, we'll just high pull. right? There's so many different ways to skin a cat. And, the benefits of Olympic lift, I see it. My best movers, the guys that can accelerate and decelerate the best, usually are pretty clean on the platform. I always take myself, for instance. I could come through with my hips. I could pull the bar really well. I had a really hard time catching weight and getting underneath weight. And reciprocally, it showed up on the field. I was a wide receiver. I could get off the line, had a great first step, had pretty good speed. I couldn't come out of my breaks. So more than anything as well, the Olympic lifts and the weight room is just another means to train what you're trying to work on the field for movement.
Sure. That's awesome, Coach. I appreciate that. Back to the regularly scheduled. I want to hear about your med ball progressions. Yeah. I remember vividly you posting something that included a couple of athletes where it was sort of like a med ball drop to a between the leg for height.
Sure.
You know what I'm talking about? I use that all the time in explaining our own progressions and explaining where we want to get to, and also show it to some of our athletes and what it ought to look like. Because I think that video was awesome. It was a game changer for us in terms of thoughts and programming. So, Coach, I want to hear how you progress those med balls and those throws and how you got to that point of that video. And I can link up that video so others can see.
Yeah. John, can you still see me? I just turned off on your phone.
I could hear you fine. Just go ahead, and when your video pops back, it pops back.
Nobody wants to see my unibrow anyways. So yeah, so that med ball, hopefully I don't want to steal it in case somebody 10 years ago, created that exercise. But I look at, what are the means to movement you want to accomplish? And with that specific exercise, we know med ball throws are awesome to teach kids how to extend their hips, use the ground wisely and correctly, how to create a, long launch pattern. And I think for me, all about progressions, I was starting kids with just a simple med ball drop. So what they would do is you'd hold the ball out in front of their face and you'd release the ball, and they'd have to sink underneath and catch the ball. And for me, that was two things. It was force absorption, and then it was the ability to level change and bend the knees, which is qualities we need to work on with every single field sport athlete. So then I decided to progress it to that full movement with the med ball drop, a catch at the bottom, and a throw. And that's a pretty complex activity. So I would save that for my kids that are ready for it. But I think that's perfect for vertical jump or then for deceleration and change direction, because you've got an abrupt, instinctive, reactive level change. You've got to absorb force and absorb that weight, the ballistic action of catching that ball, and then you have to redirect it. So simple things like that. I know you're doing a great job already. I've seen your videos, and we as a community do some amazing things with whatever it may be, step back throws and things of that nature. But for us, the med ball throws are, obviously great power developers, but they're also context for movement.
Absolutely. And that's, I'm glad you put basically everything you said. We were talking briefly about our National High School Strength Coaches Association National Conference. And my presentation was on med ball progressions. And a lot of those things, again, you're just seeing that video. And I don't know if somebody had done it before, frankly. But seeing that video had changed my thoughts on throwing, and changed my thoughts on the potential for force absorption with an object or with an implement that mimicked or led to some throw progressions. So I appreciate that. Number one, you put it in much more eloquently than I can. But number two, it's a good opportunity to say thank you, because you were one of the people that I certainly thanked through that progression or through that presentation. So, Coach, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
yeah, no doubt. For our first period segment, where we talk kind of character development, and I know this is something that you commit to just by seeing some of your social media posts and through our conversations, and just how you started off this conversation talking about character development. I imagine, at least I think it's something that us at the high school level can take from you. Although we oftentimes have a 4-year window to connect with our student athletes and develop relationships with them, sometimes we don't have that. One of the things that I battle most is when maybe we have a senior student that just decides that they want to transfer into our school and attend our school, or maybe we have one that, we just get a couple week window before the season starts and we really want to connect with them and develop that relationship so that we are better. We know each other better around campus. So I want to ask you how you relate quickly, or how you quickly connect to your combine prep athletes that maybe you didn't know before,
Yeah.
Maybe you're not going to have much. Hopefully you will have a great relationship with them moving forward. But you have a short time frame to get the most quality work in, yes, but also commit to what I know most people, I think I could probably say just about everybody got into our field to do, and that's to help people in their own character development. So I want to hear how you quickly connect and how you relate to those athletes and build that relationship with them.
Two easy things, and I'm going to kind of piggyback that with kind of a side story. Beyond combine athletes, I mean, this works for all of us in the industry and community. And I had a perfect example with a story I had shared with one of my clients. He's in his 60s. His name is Jim, and he's a dentist. And Jim asked me, kind of out of nowhere, he said, "Matty, how do you get people to like you?" And I gave him this long-winded answer. I tried to give him some short, like really cool Simon Sinek type words. And I was like, be interested in them, be charming, gregarious, set the mood correctly with your mannerisms. And he's like, "No, you're thinking too hard. Like, how do you get people to like you?" And I thought about it, and honestly, I gave up. And he gave me this easy line: to get people to like you, you like them first. It's that simple. So just, setting the intention, with how you approach somebody is so important. And for me, it was easy to make the connection, just not from a friendly or friendship standpoint, but getting people to understand that you have their best interests in mind is the easiest way to build trust. And that's honestly the easiest way to sell, because I think one of the words we hate in this industry, and especially in the private industry, is selling. Nobody likes to sell, right? Because it seems, honestly kind of jaded, and it seems like there's a monetary attachment to what you're doing. But we sell every day. I mean, we tried to sell each other and sell the community on that med ball throw about 3 minutes ago. And for us, we want to sell ourselves and our program with the way we interact, with most importantly, how we make people feel about themselves, with helping hopefully them discover certain things within themselves, whether it's, do I have what it takes, whether it's technique, whether it's, combine wise, people are in this for the challenge. Right. And, again, kind of tangent story, but one of my favorite books is a book called Wild at Heart. And it specifically looks at men and their relationship to God, but I'll keep God out of it. It looks at, men and what kind of ties us all together. And two of the biggest three of the takeaways, the two biggest two were men want to be part of an adventure, right? And men also want to be tested and know they can overcome that test or challenge. And when in a short period of time, you get somebody feeling like, hey, I got their back, it's really easy to make that connection. And I guess to even take 2 steps back, it just starts with communication, and making sure I communicate and create comfort and do a lot more listening first and foremost. Hopefully will help create really quick buying and lasting friendships, more importantly.
Outstanding. Coach, do you know who the author is offhand of Wild at Heart?
Yeah, John Eldridge. So John wrote Wild at Heart, Christian author, but he also wrote a book that would help everybody as well. I read the men's edition. I realized I wasn't being fair to half the world. There's a female edition called Captivating. I think that every listener should read, and to piggyback off that, it's the science of people, and that's our industry, is the science of people. And I know Brett Bartholomew releases his book tomorrow. I was lucky to co-author in that and have a short piece, but Brett's an amazing person, and that book is going to really catapult our industry. Because that's what we're in such a situational based industry that we forget sometimes that everybody is different. And as long as we don't throw out values and morals and principles, everybody probably should be treated a little bit differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited for that book as well. I'm sure by the time those have heard this, everybody's already read it.
Sure.
Can give us their thoughts on it, because I think it's going to be an incredible book. And he was another one of our special guests at the national conference, and it was awesome to hear him speak. They had we had a Q&A with he and Jeremy Boone that was just unbelievable. It was at Dave & Buster's, was kind of just our informal get together and
Sure.
social. And it turned out that those guys sat up there for a Q&A, and it ended up just going for an hour. That those 2 guys are just impressive human beings first and foremost, but also in what they give to our profession as coaches is just unbelievable. So I'm excited to read Brett's book as well. Appreciate that, Coach. Going off onto our lunch break segment, talking kind of off topic, and I like to get to music because that's something that I also have a passion for. So this might have selfish motives, but I want to hear a musical artist that you could just about guarantee if I come and visit your place tomorrow, I'm going to hear him or her come over the speakers. Is there an artist like that?
Definitely not Selena Gomez, although one of the young girl clients of mine would beg to differ. We're a big Pandora community here. So honestly, my favorite playlist, and hopefully you guys can plug it into your weight rooms back home tomorrow, is All the Above. I think that's by a rapper named Manio. But for me, I love fast beat music. I love stuff with great rhythm in it because I think the human body's got this innate ability to connect to those tempos and those rhythms. And it's going to help set the mood for sprint work and lift work. But if you looked at our community, I know you just asked to give me one. It's kind of funny. You see the guys that want to smash weight and the heavier power lifters, they love the Metallica and the harder rock or the harder punk type music. But you know, I've always said to my athletes, because there'll be moments when the music shuts off and everybody groans and moans, but there's no music on the football field, you know, inside 15 minutes. So, you know, whatever it is you choose, hopefully it has some type of carryover to what you want to accomplish. And I love, you know, going places or when I really think about how you could fine tune the weight room through music, you know, it starts with a warm up. A warm-up should be purposeful. Maybe your music should match that, right? When you get into mobility work or flexibility work at the end, maybe you should have something that's more soothing, maybe some soft jazz, right?
Mm-hmm.
When it's time to smash weight, you know, I think that's when you need a little more of your harder stuff and you can really blare the music. And music does wonders, I think, for certain people. And that's a great question because the more you can feed into, I guess, that cultural or almost sociological aspect of what we're doing, it's going to help.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head with that one because in our last episode with Ryan Horn, we talked a good bit about music, and it just made me think. Oftentimes, our best conversations with our high school age kids stem from something that involved music. You can find out where they're at culturally and socially around campus. You can pretty much tell a lot about a person by the kind of music they listen to or the wealth and variety of music that they listen to. But oftentimes we've had some really good conversations, just like you said, you know, socially, finding out what they're listening to and finding out what's out there, some good things, some not so good things, some things that you could say, you know, we're going to listen to this in the weight room because it has some sort of positive, it'll enforce us in a good way. And sometimes you'll hear some things that I give a kid the aux cord and we say we're never going to listen to that again.
We're all guilty.
But I mean, I love it. I think music is a very important part of our world and also our profession and relating with our kids. So, Coach, I appreciate that. You covered the playlist. I'm going to look up that All the Above playlist. Going on now to our study hall segment where we talk professional development and advice. I think you're a person that's given me professional development and advice yourself, and kind of in taking over the track and field program here at North Broward. You were instrumental in that decision and making sure that it was best for me and best, more importantly, for our students on campus. So I want to hear, correct me if I'm wrong, but your brother's also a coach, right?
Yeah. I'll talk.
Go ahead. Where's he at?
So my older brother, Tim, he's 32, and you know, one of my best friends in the world and one of the people I look up to the most. But you know, first and foremost because of his work ethic. But he started with the Milwaukee Brewers in 2010, and I'll never forget driving down to Arizona with him. And he started as an intern, and he's escalated his way up to a minor league director of strength and conditioning for the whole minor league system. He took stops in Appleton, Wisconsin with the Timber Rattlers, in Huntsville. He was in Montana for a little bit. So he's been everywhere around the country. And honestly, really had to sacrifice a lot, both from a financial perspective, from a geographical perspective, and from a time perspective. And I think that's something in a story that a lot of us share and is really near and dear to our hearts, because this industry's got so much reward, but there is a lot of sacrifice in it. And, you know, at times for him, he was really close to, possibly looking elsewhere because it is a rough road and you can barely survive, with certain positions. And it's hard. There's a lot of stress. And this industry is so interesting because, we've got guys like you that do high school and also probably will end up, showing their face through this private, social media outlet perspective. Myself, I'm in the private industry. I've got college buddies and buddies in the professional game. And sometimes, we often say the grass is always greener. And it really depends. It really depends. I mean, there's guys around the country with the sweetest college jobs and guys that you say, hell no, I'd never last. And the same thing goes in the private world. Some guys have it better than others, but no matter where you're at, I think we can all agree that it's what you do with what you have. And at the end of the day, no matter how much we complain or gripe to family and friends for certain issues, I guarantee we all are very thankful and grateful for the people we have in our lives and the fact that we freaking love every day of our lives.
Absolutely. You hit it right there. Appreciate that, Coach. Is there, again, I don't mean to steer it negative, but has there been a particular mistake that your brother's made, or maybe a mistake that you've made that you told your brother, hey, never do this? And I know he's the older brother, so it might come the other way, but is there any mistake, that one or the other, that you wouldn't mind sharing, and how you learned from it?
Yeah. I mean, any mistake in the business world, or I think professionally, usually always comes down to communication and motives. And the more you can clear up the air with certain things of that nature, you're going to be, healthy with every relationship in the long run. To kind of parlay that question, I had an intern athlete of mine. He'll be an intern next summer, but he's an athlete of mine. And say, what could you have done better when you were in your early 20s, or what would you have changed? And looking back, I didn't do a good enough job of going different places and seeking out other great coaches. And partly due to that is because, you can see people's faces on internet message boards. But there's nothing like that face-to-face, real life interaction and communication. So I wish I would have done more of that. I wish I would have networked harder. I felt like, because I was 22, 23, 24, 25, that I didn't have enough skin in the game to really communicate and create friendships. And, I mean, I tell you what, one of my past interns from last summer is 21 or 22, and he'll be a lifelong friend. And I'm so proud of him. He's interning now with South Carolina, and he just stepped out to LSU to meet with some of our old staff members actually at Next Level. And I told him, I said, you're doing a way better job than I ever did of getting out there and making face-to-face, contacts. And this is an industry where it is about what you know, but more importantly, it's about who you know. And the more you can interact and make contacts, the better you're going to have it, trying to look for different positions. But I think the more you're going to have people that have your backs, and, the richer connection you're going to have with people around the country is going to really help cement your own place. And, at the end of the day, life's about creating friendships, and we're really lucky to have budding friendships with other coaches, because there's not too many people like strength and conditioning coach. And I think people like you, and hopefully I'm doing it too, people like Brett, we're doing a great job of unifying this industry, and bringing people closer. And the hardest part about the coach is he's really competitive by nature. And it's who we are. We're all former athletes for the most part. And the more we can kind of put that aside and let our athletes be the competitive ones, the better and easier life we're going to have at the end of the day, and more impactful, hopefully.
Love it. Coach, I appreciate that. I want to get to the after school rush, and we'll get you going. This will be quick. I want to hear, what was your, and it might have been at Waukesha West, it might have been somewhere else, what was your first weight room experience?
Yeah. So, crazy story. My first weight room experience was like 8th grade. And last week I got to visit Kevin Schultz at the University of Wisconsin, who's now their Olympic director of strength and conditioning. Kevin lived a block away. He'd pick my older brother and I up every morning. I probably didn't make it every morning, to be honest with you, but I know my older brother did. And he'd take us to the weight room, and, we kind of watched those guys. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. But we just loved being in there, pushing weight around, sprinting fast and competing. And my first strength coach, his name was Jeff Seeke. And Jeff was a great guy. I want to say he served in the military. He was your typical bald-headed, 5'7", 200-pound buff guy, filled out his work boots real nicely. And honestly, looking back at the programming, we were doing some stupid, crazy stuff. But, you know, the life lessons is you're learning how to compete every day in the weight room, right? You're learning that fitness in the barbell not only makes you a better athlete, makes you a better person. And honestly, it's great stress relief. You know, a bad workout you're still blessed to have that workout. So that was my first weight room experience. Getting under a bar way too fast, doing depth jumps off of 45, 50-inch boxes onto another 50-inch box. I mean, crazy stuff. Sprinting with overspeed tubing, doing 10 by 40 with 30 seconds rest, watching guys pull hamstrings. It was the cool stuff, but it obviously you look back on it now and you kind of go, what were we thinking back then? But that stuff shapes us. And it kind of gives you an idea, though, too, of what can also go on out there, you know, so you can never assume with the kids you're working with now.
Yeah. And it's you know, something that you said that just when I was thinking about that was number one, that helped you become a great coach. I think you learned from that and it expanded some of your thought and some of your education on the matter. But it's also going to be interesting to see the next generation of coaches that if the high school level does continue to expand, and we do have a strong sense of research and practical information for our young student athletes, what the next generation of strength coaches is going to become. It'll be interesting to see, exciting to see.
I mean, John, I'll cut you off. I've heard coaches tell me they don't have time to do a 10-minute warm-up.
Yeah.
You know, come on.
Yeah, I've heard it all.
Right.
Heard it all. We are certainly limited on time, but it's, yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. That's all I have to say about that. Coach, next question. I guess you addressed who taught you how to lift. What high school coach influenced you the most and why?
Oh, I had so many at West. One of the biggest influences, I got two in my head, and I was able to speak on 5 guys about a week ago. But I had a coach named John Burton, and we called him Hollywood. He had the blonde perm hair, was a real handsome guy, was a teacher. But it was really unique to me because he really showed me that a football coach can be compassionate, empathetic, sometimes very soft-spoken, and still get the job done. And that goes without saying, there were times where he could tear you a new one. Sure. But being around John, where I kind of realized, like, I don't have to be a yeller all the time to get my point across. You know, it starts with the quality of person and then it bleeds in. That was really unique for me. I had so many: Jeff Trickey, Steve Rux, Derek Stebbins, Terry Beal. I had so many awesome guys. Slogans that jump out in my head: Jeff Trickey's an elite quarterback camp guy around the country, but accept the risk of leadership. It still took me about 7 or 8 years after being in his leadership meetings to accept that risk. Derek Stebbins was one of our D-line coaches who also was our athletic trainer. And I broke my ankle my junior year, and he did my whole rehab process for free, pro bono.
Wow.
Would stay late, was generous with his time, with his heart, and kind of paved the way, doing the little things and reminding me always that you have to pay it forward in this industry. So those guys, honestly, everything I do from a Jim's and a Joe's perspective of coaching, not the X's and O's, is a tribute, and hopefully it honors what they did for me and what they taught me.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Coach. What's your greatest memory from high school sports?
I was blessed to be on a team that won the state championship in 2004 in Wisconsin for football. And we were 3-6 the year before, had a lot of guys go down with injuries and had a lot of adversity. But we were a tight-knit group of guys. I mean, we had the youth football experience. That's what made West so awesome. I should speak on that. Was Steve Rux had a great youth program in place. We had a lot of senior guys and older guys that would give back and show up to the weight room to coach other kids. So a lot of great quality character men. But we had an amazing friendship with that core group, and to be able to win a state championship with those guys and keep lifelong friendships with them was one of the best memories in and of itself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Coach, I want to give you the last word. I want to tell you first how much I appreciate you being here. and being willing to share with us and be a source of information for the high school strength and conditioning coach. It's been awesome, unbelievable, really. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate all you do for this profession. I want to give you this chance. You could take really as long as you like to just give us your last word. It could be words of advice. It could be a call to action. Thoughts on a profession related subject, an off topic thought, or just could be a thank you or a shout out. I'd love to hear, just give you the last word and give you this stage to say whatever you'd like to.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it, John. Thanks for having me. And to the listeners at home, you guys are really the backbone of this industry. And the people out there that don't have a social media account, that don't even know too much, but you show up every day and you're willing to impact and influence a life with who you are, and more importantly, with how you make the kids underneath you and the people around you feel. You guys are what the industry is all about. And I appreciate, what the National Strength and Conditioning Association is doing from the high school perspective, to impact and influence more people. And that's what it comes down to is your impact, your influence, and your legacy. And I wrote a quote down that I wanted to leave everybody with that really resonated in my heart and resonates, to me as a coach. And that is, the things you do for yourself are gone when you are gone, but the things you do for others remain as your legacy. And that's what makes most everybody in this community so special, is we have giving hearts. We're willing to sit back and learn on a lunch break or listen at 9 p.m. at night, while probably our wife or mom or boyfriend or girlfriend, whomever, is upset that we're investing ourselves in it. But please keep sharing yourselves with other people. And, if you keep that open heart and you keep that open mind, you're only going to learn more, and you're only going to push this community, and more importantly, push the athletes, because in the end, what we do is for the athletes, and you're going to push them forward. So thanks again for listening. Would love to talk to any listener out there, so just hit me up. And again, big thanks to John. John, you're going to be at the top of this game. You're already on your way, and really appreciate everything you're doing.
Appreciate that, Coach, and thank you. You're certainly a man of your word, and you walk those, and your walk matches your talk. So, Coach, I appreciate it. Can't thank you enough for your time. I know there's a lot of people listening that are going to really appreciate what you have to say. We'll share your contact information, and we'll share all we've got from a social media standpoint to make sure people can get in contact with you if they don't know already. But again, Coach, thank you so much for all you do for the profession, and thank you for taking the time to be on the Outsourced podcast.
All right, my friend, have a great week. Thanks again.
All right, Coach. Thanks. You too.